Hey, Wes, I hear you had quite a Monday this week. Why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was one of those epic days on the surf. I think it's one of those ones that we all get out and cast for, and we put in those million casts. But it was pretty epic. We went out in the morning and actually didn't catch a whole lot. We saw a few fish, and we were just able to kind of get a feel for the water conditions. And then I had a trip scheduled for that evening, and it was just with one person. There's a kid. His name is Matt, and so we got in the car, and I told him, I said, hey, you know what? I mean, the conditions are really, really bad. We had a hurricane off the coast of us down south, and the wind was blowing probably 30 miles an hour, and the waves were coming in like storm surge. So there was stacked up, 4 or 5 sets of waves back. And I said the conditions aren't ideal for sure, but we have two things going for us right now. One of them was the water temperature. It was nice warm water, and the other was there was a decent amount of bait in the area, and the bait we're looking for this time of year is mullet. And so I said we're gonna go on the Pacific side. It's our best chance of getting a big fish. His dream was to catch a rooster, and so we went up the Pacific and got on the beach. It was blowing so hard, we were getting sandblasted on our legs, and we kind of looked at each other and said, man, are we crazy or what? I don't know if anyone's crazy enough to be out on the beach doing this in these conditions. But after a while of casting, we started seeing some fish in the waves, some mostly jacks, big jack crevalle. And yeah, from there the bait started jumping, and I cast into one school of bait and got hooked up right away and passed the rod off to Matt, and he fought it in, and it was about a 55-pound rooster fish.
That's a pretty nice rooster fish.
It was a beautiful fish, man. He came up, the colors were all lit up. He had his fin really straight up in the air, so we got some great pictures really quick and got him back in the water. And he was strong enough to make it out through those waves, which a lot of times they aren't. They struggle. And now he kicked off and made it under the first big one, and we saw him pop up on the backside of it, and his comb was out of the water swimming away. So that's always a good feeling.
Was that Matt's first rooster fish, or a big rooster fish?
Yep.
First one altogether?
From the store, yeah. It was he was over the moon, so excited. It was kind of, and so was I. It's always amazing to get somebody on their first good rooster.
Yeah.
And one of those things that everyone comes, and it's the first thing you hear from everyone. It's my dream to catch a rooster fish.
Right.
No pressure, but yeah.
Well, that's a great way to get started. So how'd it go from there?
So, man, from there, it just about 3 casts later, I did the same thing, cast over the school, and boom, another one came in and hit, and I had another one on, and I yelled down the beach, and Matt came running. He fought that one in, and it was about 45 pounds or so.
Wow.
A little bit smaller than the first. And we got 2-3 pictures and got that one back in the water. Same thing. He made it. And I think one of the things that really helped on getting them back quick was because of the conditions were so rough and there was a lot of current. Yeah. I decided to switch my setup that I was fishing on the beach from my 30-pound setup to, I had a heavy setup that I fished for the big snapper around the rocks.
Right.
And so I switched over to that, knowing that it would be a quicker fight for a lot of those fish. I was spooled up. It was a Saltiga 20,000 spooled up with 100-pound braid.
Yeah.
And not a typical surf fishing setup at all. It was a very specialized setup for when the snapper in the rocks. I always bring it along with me, but it happened to work in the big wind, throwing really big, heavy lures. And then when you get those fish, you can put a lot of pressure on them and bring them in quickly and get them released when they still have a lot of energy, instead of drawing the fight out to a 40-minute or 45-minute fight.
Right.
So anyways, we got those 2 fish, started casting again. He got about a 25-pound jack, and released that. And then by that time it was evening. The sun had gone down, and we were having trouble seeing our lures land. It was getting dark.
Right.
And we decided we were going to call it a day, and we hung our lures up on our rods. And always as soon as you say you're leaving, that's when the fish decide to
Sure.
make you change your mind. So we looked over, and all the mullet came jumping out of the water, and we saw a huge school of jacks run through them, and we both looked at each other and just dropped our backpacks and said, cast. And so we ran down and cast, and I ended up seeing the splash behind the wave, but not seeing the fish, and getting hooked up. And I yelled over to Matt and said, "Hey, you want to reel this in?" And she goes, "Nah, man, I'm done. I'm roasted. I got just reeled in 2 roosters and a jack. You do it. You have fun. Reel it in." And so I said, "Well, it's too dark to even take a picture if it's a rooster. It's not going to be worth any picture. So we might as well just force it in quick and let it go and get going." So I cranked the drag down, and I walked backwards and was just pumping this thing in as fast as I could. And I mean, I probably landed it in 6 minutes. And he gets up, washes up with one wave on the sand, and I hold him as the wave flows back out, and I see him kicking on the sand there, and I go, "Oh, that's no rooster. What is that?" I go running down, and sure enough, it's this giant snook, bigger than anything I've ever seen. I mean, I've caught some big ones, and it was just a absolute monster. I mean,
that's not, you don't target them anyway. You don't get a lot. You
No.
don't get a lot of them. How long have you been doing this? How many years you been doing this beach?
I've been fishing the beach for over 20 years. And I mean, yeah, probably 26, 27 years. And I've been guiding for 16 years.
Yeah. Well,
And we don't, yeah, like you said, we don't usually target them. The only times we really get them is when we're fishing for something else. Most of the time it's the time of year when the roosters are in, and they happen to be under those schools of mullet, and you get lucky. They come up, they're aggressive, and come up through the school and hit a lure where you're expecting to get a rooster. I thought the whole fight, I thought it was a rooster. He tried to run really hard at the beginning, and I cranked down the drag and didn't give him a chance to run. And
yeah. So tell us the rest of the story. So then you took it to Minerva's, and what the next morning?
Well, that would be skipping the fun part of the story. Was so we obviously saw this guy on the beach and knew it was a monster, and he had engulfed this whole stick bait that had 2 treble hooks. So there was as he was shaking on the beach, it was just tearing all kinds of stuff. There was no chance of getting him in the water again. So we decided to take him back, and I said, "Well, we'll go weigh him tentatively on the scale at my parents' house." And we went and weighed him, and he was on the scale. He was 52 pounds that night. And then I go, "Well, if it's the species I think it is, the Pacific white snook, then we're definitely over the record. And if it's a black snook, then we're just shy." So it would be a kind of a disappointment if it was a black, but if it was a white, it was the current record is 47.8, I believe, and it ended up weighing 51.3 on the official scale. So, but we did that, and we everything was closed by that hour. It was about 9:40 at night, and because of COVID, everything down here is closing at 10 o'clock on the dot. All the restaurants, all the stores, mini marts, everything. So we went to go find ice, and everything was closed. We couldn't find one place to get ice for. So I had this guy that I knew we couldn't weigh that night, and we couldn't find ice anywhere. And the only thing we came up with was going back to where Matt was staying, his resort, and seeing if we could get ice from the resort. And we ended up, I waited in the lobby for just over an hour to get ice. to put this fish. So it was, yeah, by the time it was 11 something at night, by the time we got ice on him. And
Well, that was quite a bit of ice you had to get anyway. That was a
yeah,
big
they had a crushed ice machine, and luckily one of the bellboys, he got excited when he saw the fish, and no one at the lobby did anything until the bellboy got excited. Then he ran off with a cart, came back with a huge cart full of crushed ice, and I think that's what saved our bacon at the end of the night, you know.
Well,
So then, yeah, next day
yeah.
I had a trip. I got in the morning, so I couldn't do it first thing, but got down to Minerva's right after another fishing trip. And
Wait a minute, what'd you catch on that trip?
we got another rooster. But Matt wasn't with me on that trip. He actually came out again today, and he was leaving for the airport. He got another rooster this morning, about a 45, 50-pound rooster this morning.
Wow, he'll be spoiled for life. That doesn't happen every day. I know that.
Nah, that kid is lucky. I told him he's got to come on all my trips now. So.
Well, that is quite a story, and IGFA has confirmed that it is a white snook. I understand you had two ichthyologists that said that's what it was.
That's correct. Yeah, I had about 2 nights without sleeping, wondering. I did have two marine biologists down here take a look at the pictures. One of them took a look at the actual fish, and they both said that they were pretty positive that it was a white snook. And that really doesn't mean anything to me until the IGFA tells you that it is. So I had sent detailed pictures.
Or you're still waiting for them?
What's that?
Has IGFA confirmed it now, or are you still waiting for them?
Yeah, I sent them a lot of detailed pictures of all the different fins and the whole fish and all the measurements and everything. And they said they spent the morning taking a look at it that morning, and both of the fish ID experts there confirmed that it was a white snook. So that puts us on a really good track to having that record be official. So
well, that's great. That's your first world record, right?
It is, yeah, officially. Yeah,
yeah, that's terrific. And now you're on the path. You'll have to you'll be trying to catch the next one.
It's a kind of a hard thing. It's hard when you don't want to kill the fish, you know.
Sure.
I've had a few fish that I know were over the record. And well, the hawkfish, which is a really neat looking fish. They're a smaller fish. It's not a very, no one's going for the record hawkfish, but it's a beautiful little reef fish, and I've caught over the world record 3 times, and twice I've actually weighted on a hand scale quick at the beach before I released it just to see, and it was over.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the heart to kill them. They're such a beautiful fish, and they look like they're a really old fish at that point.
Right. They're beautiful fish, very colorful.
Someday I'm going to figure out how to catch and release them, and officially weigh them and release them, and that's when they'll submit for
actually, if you had your own certified scale, you can do that. I mean, all you have to do is have a certified scale and do it on the beach and let them go. That's
I guess that would be a decent way to do it. I know that IGFA is they're pretty strict about everything, and they grill you pretty hard and don't like giving those records away easily. So
no. All right. Well, that's pretty cool, man. And be sure and send me a copy of a picture of your the record when you get it.
Oh, for sure.
Fingers crossed. And thanks for sharing the story. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Gary.
All right. Thanks a lot, and we'll keep our fingers crossed till I actually see that picture.